Thank you.
Great, thank you. Well, I appreciate everybody, and hopefully we'll keep it entertaining. I do remember the strip mall in Sunnyvale, and I was there many times, tasting hot sauces and all kinds of fun stuff. So, but let's talk about agriculture today and food generation, because I think all the discussions have been, both yesterday and today, really interesting about technology and where technology is going. Super fun, right? The key is, like, when you get to something like agriculture, which is the least digitized industry, how do you actually use technology to make a difference? And it is challenging. I am not lying. Like, it doesn't matter how cool the technology is. If it doesn't get embedded in a solid business model and is at the core of the business model, it'll just be a nice thing that we just have on the side that eventually we'll stop using. But before we get into that, just a little bit about me. Teddy Bekele. I actually was born in Ethiopia, lived there 7 years, moved to Italy, lived there for 10, then moved to the United States, to North Carolina, went to finish my high school there, finished college there, and then worked in Charlotte for a number of years before moving to Minnesota. Now, the reason I bring myself up in this is my father was actually a farmer in Ethiopia, and he lost his land during the mid-'70s, and then he sold crop protection and farm equipment from Europe into Eastern Africa. So one of the things when I went to college, I went to school for mechanical engineering, I swore I would never do agriculture, ever. And I actually went into mechanical engineering. That's my, by trade, that's what I'm trained to do. Then the dot-com thing happened, and got into the technology space, jumped in, loved it, stuck with that, worked industrial manufacturing for a long time, till this call came from Land O'Lakes that said, hey, we want you to come to Land O'Lakes. And I said, well, how much technology is in churning butter? Because that's all I knew about Land O'Lakes, right? And they're like, oh, no, you don't understand. We're much bigger than that. We're a big agriculture and food production company. And they're like trying to sell me like it's a good thing. And I'm going, yeah, agriculture, that's no. And then I'm like, number two, where are you based again? Minneapolis, Minnesota? I live in Charlotte. It's like 70 degrees in the winter, and you're going to somewhere where it's like minus 20 in the winter, right? But nonetheless, I made the jump to Land O'Lakes, and it's been a great adventure. And how awesome to see how this oldest industry in the world is transforming, largely because of technology, but also just a lot of the advancements that have been happening in biotech and a couple other things. So who's Land O'Lakes? Number one, there's 4 divisions of Land O'Lakes. 3, the predominant ones are the 3 in the kind of the going from left to right. WinField United is a crop inputs business, so we buy seed, crop protection, and plant nutrition products from companies like Bayer, Syngenta, and BASF. We sell that to retailers that are located in rural communities. These retailers are part of our cooperatives network, and then these retailers, once they buy the inputs, they sell these inputs, and when I say inputs, the seed and crop protection, to row crop farmers. And so that's kind of our customer base, and that's one of our the largest division. Purina, which most people know the name Purina, which used to be its own company 25 years ago, got split up, and Nestle took the dog and cat business, and we took just about everything else. So goats, horses, chickens, dairy cows, which will come in handy in a second. All these animals, we have feed for that, so we're the basic feed manufacturer, and then we sell that through Tractor Supply and a lot of mom and pop dealers throughout the United States. Dairy foods business, that is the business most people know about. It is the butter business. We buy milk from our cooperative members, which are dairy producers. That's how the company got started 103 years ago. We bring that milk in, we pasteurize it, and then we either decide to sell it in the open marketplace, or we turn it into value-added products like butter and cheese that we sell to the store. And then, of course, you have our Truterra business. And before we get to that, why is this composition of this portfolio? And this is going to be interesting as we talk about the technology downstream as well. So we start with the seed, and we understand everything about the seed that goes into the ground, how to take care of it, how to manage it, how to make it grow nice and healthy. Whatever comes off of that, the main feed ingredients that we use in Purina are corn and soybeans, which are the 2 major crops that are produced in the United States. The number 1 species we serve in our Purina business are dairy cows, like as I mentioned earlier. And those dairy cows a lot of them are owned by a lot of our dairy producers. And so and then of course we developed the butter and cheese. And so the products that you find in the shelf at the store, you can sort of have this continuum where we see it from farm to fork, and we really operate in that fashion. Now, that said, these business units are totally independent and giants in their own, within their own sort of verticals. Tritera business, it really looks across these businesses and how do we look at sustainability, both environmental and profitability, right? So how do we make sure that our farmers are not only doing the right things for the soil that they work with, which by the way, for them it's a big deal because a farmer, especially if it's a generational farmer, they own their land, it's been passed from one generation to the next, so they want to be able to pass it to the next generation in better conditions than they found it. So they very much care about this, but they can't care about this at the expense of profitability, which means because they, every year when they buy seed and equipment and everything else that goes along with it, are making these huge investments, really mortgaging the future. And so they can't make bad bets. So this whole idea that it became real to me when the people say bet the farm, like it's not just a term. In agriculture, they truly do bet the farm every single year, so they want to see a return on that investment. And again, and not a large return. A lot of them are more doing this as a lifestyle. So, but the idea is like you want to be here for the next generation. I want to be able to hand this land in a good position. So how do we help them do that and think about sustainability both from a financial standpoint, an environmental standpoint, and also from a community standpoint? How do they make sure that the next generation doesn't leave the farm? How do they enable other individuals to potentially come live into that rural lifestyle? Because most of us are, let's be honest, are not moving back to the farm, right? Or back to those communities. So it's important that we keep that vibrancy because it's vital to food security in our nation. So that's our business and kind of spans across this area. So as Matthew said, it's a little bit bigger than butter, which was also surprising to me. And eventually I took the leap of faith to come to this company because I remember the leader of WinField United at that time saying, I think technology has the ability to revolutionize this industry and really change the way not only we do agriculture, but the way we produce feed, food, and fuel, and fiber. So those are the 4 Fs. So everything that comes off the ground kind of ends up into those 4 streams, which is just about everything we need to be able to survive going forward. So this is kind of the backbone of being a cooperative. It is a really interesting model. So what are some of the impacts today that I see, for example, in agriculture, like where AI particularly is having a huge impact? And I mean digital, and when I say digital, I mean like online commerce, the ability to use mobile phones and take images and all that. It's all been really cool stuff. But the impact that artificial intelligence is going to have in this industry is going to be dramatic. So number one, how you manage the field. And this is something we've actually been doing for a long time, but I'll show you some examples of what we do there. How do we optimize the supply chain? So just to give you a simple example, if you are a row crop farmer in the Midwest, it's corn or soybeans. Wheat sometimes, but mostly corn and soybeans. And you rotate between the two. And why do you rotate? One, it's good for the nitrogen in the soil. Two, because soybeans take smaller growing degree days, which means they take less days to produce, but you also sell them. You don't make as much money with soybeans. Corn, you make more money. It's more predictable crop, but it takes longer span. But now let's say most areas you're going to plant in March, April, or May. Minnesota, May, Georgia, February, maybe, right? And so like if you make that decision, do you go corn or soybeans? Well, you don't know because you don't know what the weather's going to look like. And despite all the forecasting that we do, the one thing you cannot predict is hyperlocal weather at any given point. So you can't say I'm going corn because it might be a truly wet winter and you might not be able to get the corn into the ground. So what do? You end up buying bags of soybeans and corn. And then this industry is weird because you get to return all that stuff for free. Of course, because like you're making this investment and there's all kinds of connections there. So how do you optimize this sort of convoluted supply chain, which then makes even worse with manufacturers pushing their rebates down as far as the products that they want to sell? Market analysis and prediction, just like stock prices, farmers live and die by grain prices. Price of corn, soybeans, wheat, and all that, we'll get into a little bit of that. So the idea that they can actually predict the market a little bit better and take better positions is a huge deal for them. And then, of course, how do you manage the livestock? So these are kind of the areas that I think AI has truly an impact to be able to change how people make decisions, when they make decisions, how they make decisions, and it's really going to be a huge differentiator in the agricultural space. But talking generalities, but kind of let's get into maybe some of the examples that I like to show, right? So on the field side, for example, like this is not one of ours. I'll use some of our examples because I think we're doing some really fun stuff. But this is something that John Deere has, which is a residue detection technology on their tractor. So imagine the tractor going down the field, and by residue detection, what does that mean? If you look on the bottom left, you see the soil on the left-hand side, and the right-hand side is the image detection, looking at what's residue that's left in the soil. So when you're going to before you put the seed into the ground, you actually inject it into the ground, you want to get rid of the residue, because if the seed hits the residue, it doesn't grow. Right? So you clean, so it's called the row cleaner, and you want to clean the residue going forward. Well, this is something that was kind of done by art. Like so the farmer's driving down and they're looking at the field and they put the row cleaner down, or they put it down the whole time, but you don't want to till the entire field because the more you till, the more carbon may be released into the atmosphere, as well as the nitrogen doesn't get optimized. So you want to touch it as least as possible. So the big area here is how can you do this kind of row cleaning without being able to like have somebody just manually by art do this whole deal. The other interesting part is this equipment is like moving at this speed, which is, by the way, it's only like 7 to 8 miles an hour. So it's not really all that fast, but like this is how you make a decision. You're going down and you're going, oh yeah, now, like you put the row cleaner up and down, et cetera. So some of the technologies, for example, that John Deere has developed is, this is how it looks when you use computer vision now to be able to do the detection, and the row cleaner automatically is going up and down the field. So this is a cool, really innovation. Now, here's the problem for John Deere when I talk about business model. This equipment usually costs about $350,000. With this new technology, it may cost $450 to $475. So the other $125,000 investment, like how are you going to recoup that? And is this going to be worth it? Is your yield going to be higher, et cetera, et cetera? So that all has to be packaged properly for the farmer to be able to adopt. And that's just one simple little thing that happens in agriculture. This chart is an old chart. It's fitting for agriculture because it looks old. It looks like it's made in the 1990s. But these are the 40 major decisions a farmer goes through in any given single season. You can break it up into 5 segments: planting, pre-planting, planting, et cetera, and then there's all these decisions that farmers have to make, which is why farming is more of an art than a science. And by the way, each of these decisions has 4 other or 5 other sub-decisions that go with it, so there's about 180 some decisions you have to make. Let me give you just a simple breakdown of why this is complicated. So you have the major things, we'll sort of right to left. Crop seed, what type of seed am I going to plant? What type of crop protection I'm going to put on it? And what kind of nutrition does it need as the plant grows? There's 7 considerations you have to take into account. Is my field variable? What's the genetic response? Blah, blah, blah. And so imagine these decisions, like I just showed you a second ago, are also not independent from one another. They're very much independent on a many-to-many relationship, right? And then all this wrapped with weather, which is totally unpredictable. So that's why it's farming today is really more art and the recipe you've developed and you just sort of adjust as you go along, versus being the scientific sort of decision that you make day in and day out. So now this is where the technology can come in to help you make better decisions. So some of the things we do is we plant a lot of, we have these, what's called an answer plot, which is research plots with, where we do distributed research, and we plant all the different varieties and all the different products that are available in the market. And then we see how they perform in different environments, different soil types, et cetera, to help with these decisions, and then narrow it down to say, okay, as the retailers go to market with the farmers, we say, okay, for this specific micro market, so we segment them into micro markets, there's 369 growers that would be the right kind of for this type of a product. And then there's X amount of acres that those 339 growers make. And then they're 10x likely to purchase because of their purchase patterns and their behaviors that they've seen in the past. So by doing that, now we can target the grower and give them the explanation about like, hey, by the way, in your environment, with your soil, with your treatment methods and your preferences, this is really what works best for you to be able to get the best yield. So if you go back to making that investment in that equipment, for example, let's say it's a different type of equipment or the expensive bag of seed that we sell, this is how you'll get the more return at the end of the day and be able to have that best conversation. From a supply chain optimization, what we can do now, but is also map it back to the programs and the rebates the manufacturers have. So we can say, hey, Bayer, this specific fungicide that you have that has a high response to efficacy on this field, you have a program for it. These are the 330 farmers that we should target for that. And not only we have a better way to fulfill your program, but we should actually change your program. Like your program should be tailored more like this. And now you're really doing more of that optimization and having the products in inventory that you need in that retail shed that are more applicable to them at any given time. So this is a way of using a little more machine learning and some behavioral tendencies to be able to get to the right way, kind of optimizing the supply chain up and down. Now with Gen AI, one of the interesting things in agriculture that we've been able to do is we've got this thing called the Crop Protection Guide. It's about a 1,000-page book. It costs about it's a 400-page book, $1,000. And this is what an agronomist uses, called the Bible of agriculture, of crop protection, right? You flip through, and if you have a specific disease, what is the fungicide that will best serve that disease? And then what's the adjuvant that you match it up with? And why does an agronomist need that? Well, because depending on the soil type And the application rates, you actually have to know like how much of this ounces combined with this much liquid do you have to combine it. So what we tried to do is, can we actually digitize this and create a chatbot of sorts using a small language model, essentially, and say, can the agronomist now converse with the large language model, right, or with the small language model, and saying, like, is this specific product compatible with a glyphosate? And what would happen if I applied in this type of an environment? And then, of course, the AI is going to go back and respond. Really cool. It's really fun stuff. We actually created this in very little time, right? And, of course, the Tavant team had a lot to do help us with this. What was the hard part of this is getting agronomists to, number one, test this thing, right? Because they go, yeah, I don't think I can trust this thing. I'm like, ask it questions. And then they say that's wrong, and then we have to go verify if that answer was actually right or wrong, and we spend a lot of time training this model. So we think we're quite there, but it's going to be, what is the business model around this? Yeah, you can use this. We can stop printing this book, which costs 1,000 pages, but at the end of the day, are they really going to use it, or do they still want to use the book? Because if they still want to use the book, then the tech is nice, but it's not doing anything. Are we going to have those programs that I talked about earlier embedded in this thing, and that's the only way you can access the program? Those are the types of things that are the changes that are required to really change this industry and really make it more adopted. We talked about grain prices earlier. This is another area where we spend a lot of time on what determines what the price of corn is going to be, or what the price of soybeans is going to be. So on the left-hand side, we try to, not just what is the price, that's the ultimate question, but there's a lot of sub-things that make up that decision. So how many acres were planted of the specific crop? What's the projected yield on average throughout the country? Because based on that, we will know how much production there will be and how much will be sold, which will then impact global economies. Now, if you drill down into that, one of the things you have to know about commodity prices in the US is you have to know what the commodities are produced in Argentina and Brazil, which are the other two big countries that produce corn and soybeans. And what impacts there? Weather. So one of the things, for example, we've discovered is that by looking at the aridity level in Brazil and Argentina, could you start to have an insight on what the prices of soybeans are going to be in the United States? So these are the types of things that we're starting to uncover to make it, because grain trading in itself is an art, not necessarily a science, but trying to uncover that a little bit more. So this is where now, I guess, the grain trader is not being replaced and will never be replaced, but is actually using technologies to make a little bit smarter decisions. They know why certain things have an impact, and why when this level changes to higher or lower, or it's different from previous years, why is it going to impact the commodity prices, who's going to sell at what time, and they're now learning to do this more and more. And the key is, can we make the grain trader a data scientist, and can we get the data scientist to become a grain trader? Because they sit at the table together like this, and they have these conversations, and it's interesting seeing that come together. Now, will they really make the decision based on the tool? Still to be seen, but hopefully we're moving in that direction there. I'm moving through our businesses, so this is the crops, and now we're moving to the animal nutrition, so you kind of see how it applies a little bit everywhere. One of the species that I love the most is horses, and people that love horses really love their horses. Like, I was talking to Matthew earlier, his daughter rides horses, and the first thing he told me, yeah, Jack, the horse. Yes, horse owners have names for their horses. In a lot of cases, they might like them even more than their children. That's how much they care. So the performance and the wellness of the animal is super critical. So again, this is something we developed. We have a research facility in St. Louis where we've amassed lots of data about horse nutrition, and we actually have the makeup of their microbiome. And so if the horse owner can send us a sample of their blood, the stool, and the follicle of the animal, we can actually create a profile that says, based on the information we have, this is what your microbiome makeup of your horse looks like. And based on that information, now we can actually create the right nutrition plan along with the right supplements, right? And then you can feed this to your horse, and you should see a change in wellness. You should see a change in performance of that horse moving forward. And people love that. Again, you got to have the right business model to go around this. We developed this. It's nice. It's out there. Horse MQ is there. But convincing horse owners to stop going to Tractor Supply to buy the regular bag that they're used to switch to this type of a model is a little bit different. The good news is they don't have issues feeding the horse the feed, which this on the human side is going to be really interesting, because there are companies on the human side that do this, and my wife and I tried it, except I didn't want to follow the plan. And she's like, but this is what you should eat. I'm like, I don't want to eat that today. So, and I don't, right? Whereas horses, I guess you could just be like, this is what you have, and there's no talk back. Maybe some, but not too much. So, but that's where you can see these are novel ways in which AI is starting to be used to really optimize even how horses perform. This other example, like I told you, Tractor Supply is a big company, but a lot of our customers are mom and pop dealers, which submit orders to us to replenish their stores. And believe it or not, they're still using faxes. I can't wait till we get rid of that. But till the very last one is still using a fax, we'll still do it. So they either use faxes or they call in, right? A lot of the orders are not automated. So we use the RPAs to be able to automate some of that incoming orders, right? So we told them, okay, don't call customer service. We told them to get them to go online. They won't go online because they don't know all the SKUs and they don't know exactly how much of this they should buy or whatnot. So we said, how about you just send an email in? So we gave them a form, a template in an email. They would fill out the email template and be like what they wanted and send it in, and then the bot picks it up and does it. So that was kind of it's called RPA 1.0, where it was just kind of more of that deterministic, very basic automation of the process. Now we're starting to use a little bit of agents now. What we've done is, like a lot of them, some of them use this, so we moved the mark a little bit from like 10% online to like I think 25% online. But then, a lot of them didn't use it because they're like, it's too complicated to fill out the form, I don't understand, et cetera. So we're like, okay, fine. How about you just send an email in? Just like you would say, I want to buy 5 bags of whatever you want to call it, like kind of the name of the bag, 10 bags of this, whatever, you just submit the email. And now, based on the email ID, and now the agent going through and picking up what it wants, what it can do is go through and pick out all the pieces from the order, and then it goes back into the to the online portal, kind of fills in exactly what it thinks the order is going to be, the number of bags, and all that kind of fun stuff. Kind of goes through it, and at the end of the day, it really kind of produces the order for that dealer, and comes back and says, this is the order that you asked for immediately, and says this is when it's going to be shipped to you. If you have questions, now you can call customer service, and we can have a chat about this. But if not, like your order is submitted and we can go along. Now, what's the benefit of this? Do we eliminate customer service roles? Not really. However, when they do call in now, it's a much richer conversation because you already know what you want to order. We don't have to spend time muddling through that. What we can talk about is, hey, when you order this, you didn't order the supplement for XYZ. Don't you think you want to have more of that? This is a hot product that's working. So the customer service agent is actually upselling a little bit and kind of creating that deeper connection. If not, we can even see the orders that have come in, and the customer service agent can proactively reach out now if they want to and say, hey, I saw you submitted this order. By the way, we may have some delay in the shipments or whatever, et cetera, but this is the other things that we can include in that shipment. So it really starting to change a little bit of how work is happening. So I don't think these jobs will get replaced. They'll get replaced if, one, the dealer doesn't want to adopt this, or two, the customer service agent says, no, I don't want to deal with all this. I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. Of course, that's not going to work out. That would not be a high-performing customer service agent. However, if they're interested, I think the work changes, the nature of it, and it gets to be more interesting and more fun for them versus this, yeah, Joe's calling, I got to take the order, blah, blah, blah. He's so slow, I get hard conversation, all that kind of fun stuff. So, all right, moving on to the dairy food space. Here's another fun one. So obviously we talked about butter and cheese earlier. We sell that in retail stores, but the other big side of what we sell to is food service, which is more of our commercial customers. So think of Culver's if you're in the Midwest. Now let's see a lot of head nodding. Okay. So, okay, some head nodding. Chick-fil-A? Yeah, all right. So those are all, a lot of them are, like Chick-fil-A particularly is a really good Land O'Lakes customer. And so obviously, but we have lots and lots of restaurant operators. The ones I'm talking about was like the really big ones, but we have a lot of 1 restaurant, 2 restaurant type of owners. And so we don't have a sales force for that, like agents for it, right? So what we do have is brokers that we work with. So the large national accounts, of course, we handle those. Some of them are done by brokers. The smaller ones in general, these brokers will sort of have a Rolodex, literally. And then they call these restaurants and try to, hey, you should buy Land O'Lakes cheese. They have this new formulation. I think it's going to be great for you, et cetera, et cetera. Who do they normally call? The people they really know and the people that they like. They don't really call the people that they really should be calling on, which may be the bigger restaurants and the ones that are more likely to adopt our product. So we actually created a model where we took the demographic data of where that restaurant owner, the different restaurants are. We took a look at their menus, of what their menu looks like. We take a look at their transactions, and did really an optimization model to say which customer really best fits our products categories, based on all these recipes and all that stuff that we have in the past. So essentially, the model kind of came back and said to the broker, these are the restaurants you should call, and you should call them in this order. Call Frank first, with Frank restaurants, et cetera, make those calls. It took a little while, this was in 2018, to get them to adopt it, but one good thing that happened is what you see on this chart is the number that says 122, for example, that's 122,000 restaurant operators. So that's when I say we have a lot of them, we have a lot of them. So that's how many we did business with in 2018. Now, based on this optimization model, we really have gone to this propensity model. We've gone up to 163,000 restaurant owners that we can touch, which is really fun. The other part, though, is we used to sell the cheese at 95 cents a pound, and now we sell it at $1.65 a pound. Why? Because you're not selling cheese anymore. What you're selling is a menu item. You're going in and saying, hey, we should talk about this Mexican mean musts that you need to have, and here's how the recipe works. Here's why this cheese works well with that, and we think your customers would really, really appreciate that. And so kind of making that connection really helps with that. Now you're talking about, you're a menu consultant now. You're not a food service broker, which I like menu consultant better. So that's kind of an interesting way to be able to use this type of AI to really change the business. So this one is well embedded. We created the right sort of business model around it and has been really, really well adopted. So at the end of the day, I get this question all the time because they think I spend trillions of dollars in IT, which I do not. The ag business in general spends less than 1% of revenue on technology, and the CPG side maybe a little bit more. So for me, at the end of the day, it nets out to somewhere on 1.1% of revenue, which is absolutely nothing. But in the world of, it's all contextual and relative, right? So in their world, oh my God, we spend so much money. And then the question always comes down to is it glue or is it gold? Meaning, is it glue? Do we need to continue doing this because we have to be in business for the next 100 years, and if we don't do it, somebody's going to come eat our lunch? Or is it gold from a standpoint of, is this a new revenue model? Is it going to increase profit pools? Is it going to make us operationally more efficient? And this is a debate we have all the time because I have to take these capitals for approval, and it's kind of messy, but here's always my consistent answer. It is sparkling glue. Yes, it is glue because we need to do this to stay relevant. And in that, you may find some interesting opportunities that we didn't uncover before. And we found several of those over the years. But that's the conversation that comes around all the time that I deal with in our industry. The second one is AI going to take our jobs? Right? And I talk about that, and we talked about that earlier with that customer service agent. And for me, it's like, look, a job is a collection of tasks. And a lot of tasks are going to get automated with this AI. At some point, will all the tasks get automated by AI to where the job is no longer required? The answer is we don't know. Just like Srinivas was saying earlier, don't know, we'll see, right? But that's still far away from me. At the end of the day, where we kind of convincing our team is, look, the work's going to change. So what artificial intelligence is going to do is if you look at the pyramid, like go back to the earlier one, you have more of the repetitive tasks at the bottom for anybody's job, and then you get to the more strategic stuff that you want to spend time on doing, and you have very little time to spend to be able to do those things because you're caught up doing the sort of that repetitive manual task. So if with AI, what we're going to do is can we flip the pyramid around where now you can eliminate those kind of tasks that are repetitive and that don't add a lot of value, and really can we expand the top where you're going to spend more time thinking, collaborating, talking to people, et cetera, et cetera. So this seems to resonate with people, and I'm like, this is why you need to learn how to use Copilot, for example, in our organization. This is why you need to be able to develop an agent, which is, in this room, it sounds like, oh, we've been talking about agents. In our company, when I say agent, they're like customer service agent? Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, you can create agents. And then when you say agent-to-agent connection, that's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're off the reservation at this point. I'm like, no, I'm not. If I am, your job, it will be replaced. So we have that conversation. But I think that the big thing I'll leave you with is I think this transformation, especially in industries that are not tech at the core, is going to take some time. The tech is fun, but you really have to wrap it around. I gave you a lot of examples of things we are doing. We're trying with that chatbot. But there are others like the propensity model that's well embedded. It all depends on if it's wrapped around the right business model. And what I try to convince my partners all the time is tech, you don't do your business model and then you got this tech on the side. Oh, we'll use that to enable some of this, right? No, it's the other way around. The tech's got to be at the core, and then the rest gets built around it. So now you have to use the technology to bring the business model to life. But that, to folks that are not in the tech industry and that are not native to it, is very difficult because they just see this as like, this is just another laptop or another calculator that I'm going to use. And I'm like, nah, it's not quite that. So anyhow, so a lot of transformation that needs to happen there, and that's kind of where I spend my time. But farmers are a lot of fun to work with. They're grumpy. Like even the jokes that I make, I'm glad you guys laughed a little bit, because when I sit in a farmer setting, it doesn't work like that. They'll have their hats and they just stare at you, you know? And I'm like, oh my God, I bombed today. And I come off and they're like, that was really good. I really enjoyed what you said. I'm like, you did? You didn't move. And they're like, oh yeah, no, but it was good. I'm like, I just hope you're not still selling us snake oil, you know? Which is why they are very hesitant. But when they do adopt it, they do go all in, and it's a big industry, and it's really fun to transform over time. So that's my talk for you today. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll take one or two questions. Questions or things I didn't explain properly? Yep.
Any experiments that you're doing on the agent side or any future stuff that you can share?
From an agent standpoint, yeah. So for example, that one with the ordering of our feed business, like we really are starting to use agents there to be able to really understand what the order pattern looks like, and can we even, so now we're just understanding the order and can we actually fulfill it, so that's a simpler piece of it. But in the future, we want to be a little bit more proactive, where can we actually submit the order on their behalf to begin with, or create a pre-order. So the agent can go out, look at that customer, understand sort of their preferences, what they've done in the past, understand the dynamics in their market, and then say, this is what they need. And I might not know their inventory levels, but I think it's about this, and kind of pre-populate that and then send that over to the customer and say, this is your order, what do you think about that? So we're looking at that, not in the feed business, but in the other two, particularly in dairy, we're looking at customer service, for example, to be able to look at agents, not to replace so the calls we get on the dairy food side are really interesting, right? Like, it's not because you don't buy from us, right? You buy your butter from Walmart or Kroger or the high-end Kowalski's, whatever that might be, right? So if you have a problem, you usually go back to the store. LandO'Lakes.com, if you actually went to the site, is a whole bunch of recipes, because the idea is, once you have your butter, what are you going to do with it? And we have lots of ideas of what you could do with it. So the calls we get is, I try to bake this pie, and it turned out like shit, right? So why? What happened with the butter and all that type of stuff, right? Like, what's going on? And so those are the calls we get. And so the things we try to do there is, instead of, you don't want to, and the people that answer the phone are bakers themselves in a lot of cases. By the way, Land O'Lakes butter, it's not the most expensive, it's not the cheapest, it's middle of the road. If you just put it on toast, you may not tell the difference between the store brand, but if you bake, then the difference will be shown. So the people that are answering the call are also bakers. So they have to have this deeper conversation with the customer. But we're trying to give them some agents that can help them sort of prepare for the call. Could there be an agent that first answers the call? So instead of having to wait, right? You're talking to an agent, for example, you explain all the problems, and by the time it comes to the few agents the people that we have, could they be informed about what the issue might be, what's the sentiment and things like that, so they can have this richer conversation. And by the way, whoever leaves the call, you want them to go, I love Land O'Lakes butter, and they tell everybody in the world about this next pie they made and how awesome it was. And that's always been a staple for us. Yep.
Yeah, one of the things that you didn't touch on, which I'm kind of curious, is like the impact that robotics is having on your business, right? We kind of talk about agents and AI, but AI and robotics.
Yeah, robotics for us will be in, so on the field itself, we don't make any equipment. So John Deere and others will do that. Yeah, that's them, and that'll be a lot of fun. Where robotics for us will be important is in the warehouses. So we have, especially in that WinField United business, distribution business. So we have lots of big warehouses. So can we use robotics in that context? So that will be an area we're investigating that now. Inventory management in agriculture is a disaster. I don't even want to say this, but we don't use barcoding in agriculture. Can you imagine? That's like 70s technology, right? Never got adopted, and now it's almost too late to start. And so people try to do RFID and all that type of stuff, and it's still not there. So now it's like, could we actually bypass all that and have a drone fly around the warehouse and just take pictures of stuff and identify what that is? So that would be a use of robotics. So we're looking at it into that space a little bit, but it's a harder sell to make for us because it's a huge investment, and where's the return with the margins being so low? But still trying to figure out the right places for it.
Hey, Jerry.
Yep.
I used to work at Procter & Gamble and Walmart in the out of stock for stores, right? Are you guys trying to leverage AI for that specific scenario?
Yeah, to manage the out of stock. You more so than the out of stock. For us, the bigger problem is the opposite, too much stock. because it's a perishable product, right? And with a short shelf life. So like if it doesn't get consumed in a store, it's getting dumped, and that's not good, right? So how do we optimize the inventory for that store without getting into a shortage type of a situation where it's off the shelf and nobody can find it, because that's not good either. So we are using AI to be able to do that. We're looking at it to be able to delist some SKUs, for example, right? So like if you, over time, you start to see that this product is not doing so well in this given store, maybe it's time to like take that SKU off the list for that retailer and like replace it with something else, because we already see that degradation happening, and we don't want to have the waste along with kind of the opposite issues as well. So we are starting to look at that big time as well, yes.
I spent 1 year at Walmart and Procter & Gamble on that specific use case, and I've been assigned to your account in chat.
No, definitely, I'll be happy to do that. Now, the smaller stores are easy. Walmart's a different beast. Like, Walmart is a big customer for us, and it's a lot of product that goes to Walmart.
So I have a question for you.
Yep.
Okay. Probably a late night question after a couple of drinks. Do you think we have enough food to feed the 7 billion?
Do we have enough food to feed the 7 billion? I think we will have enough food to feed the 7 billion, but we will not have the diversity of food needed to feed the 7 billion, right? So we make too much of the same today, right? Like corn and soybeans are made in like massive quantities, right? So if we wanted to go to a more corn-based diet, the United States is in great shape, okay? Like we have a surplus, actually. But that's not what you want, right? You want to have, like, as we get to more nutritious food, you want variety, you want biodiversity. With that means those corn and soybean fields have to change into pea fields, lentil fields, other things, other crops, which are more expensive from equipment, management, getting the products in. For that, there's going to be some bigger issues, I think. And some of the smaller things around the cities help, but when you need to produce in mass quantities, it's another story. And if you think world besides just the United States, that's even a bigger problem now, right? So that the biodiversity aspect of it is, I think it's a real problem. The quantity of what the things we know how to make in production, we're probably okay with that.
So how much work do you do in terms of the learnings that you have in exporting those to other countries?
To other countries, yeah. And actually, so we haven't done enough, Sarvesh, to answer that question, right? So we've done where we have a nonprofit organization called Venture 37, and they go through and they do things with USAID, which has issues now, the Bill Gates Foundation. We do some work with them to export some of the knowledge that we have here and take it to sub-Saharan Africa, to take it to parts of Southeast Asia. And those are all good things, but they're in small scale, right? We're not doing it at a bigger scale. And the challenge we have as an organization is for us to work in other places, we need to be a cooperative. So actually one of the things we're looking at now is, can we go either establish a cooperative somewhere or go merge with a cooperative, yet leave them independent in those countries, but then transfer some of the knowledge that we have. So that would be the good way to go about it. Because you absolutely, I mean, I don't have that today, but there are ways which you could absolutely produce more food by doing slightly even less. Just have to do it in a smart way. Yep.
I'm just curious, what is the profit margin difference between soy and like vegetables like broccoli, for example?
Like a specialty crop, right? Soybeans, you sell them about $10 right now, $10.87 a bushel, right? Of that, how much does a farmer make? I would probably say like less than $1, like 70 cents or something like that per bushel. On broccoli, on specialty crops, it's more. Like it's in the $3 or $4 probably, not quite the same bushel, but whichever way they count it. So specialty crops are more interesting. It's just a lot more expensive to manage. So to optimize it is the problem, right? So in broccoli, to be able to get to the same spot, for example, you are with soybeans, the investment and the learnings you have to make are such a big steep curve for somebody who's doing soybeans that it's hard to make that switch. Now the guys who make broccoli obviously have optimized and figured that out. It's the switching from what you used to do to something else that becomes very difficult. Even more so than the food, though, the bigger issue, I think, is what did I say the 4 things were? Like feed, fuel, food, and fiber, right? Get to fuel, and I don't mean fuel just like, yes, we take corn and turn it into ethanol. Yep, that's the thing, but with electric cars, that goes away. But electric cars now use the electric grid. We talked about using more AI. What does AI need? More data centers. We talked about that earlier. Where are they putting these data centers? They're putting them in rural communities because there's lots of space there. But now it's going to reduce not only power generation, like the power consumption in the rural community, but it's also going to consume water, right? And so take places like Nebraska and Iowa where there's water constraints, and now the food production is going to be like at heads with AI production, right? But even when we talk about energy, where does the energy come from? It's a nuclear plant, a coal plant, or something like that. Well, those places use water intensively to cool down the reactors, right? And so when that happens, now you're using even more water. So this is going to be a big problem where that's where the scarcity is going to come from when you have this battle. So can you take farmers, okay, you don't want to do lentils, you don't want to do broccoli, fine. How about you put a wind farm up instead? How about you put solar panels instead? And you know what you're going to do? Sell that energy to the data center. They'll be more than happy to take it from you. The capital investment up front is really difficult for them, but I'm seeing some of them make that transition. By the way, managing a field of solar panels is much easier than managing a field of corn. So yeah, you put it in and then you make sure that no birds pooped on it or none of the panels broke, right? That's about it. So versus corn, you're constantly into the field doing stuff. So those are some of the changes that I think has to happen in agriculture going forward. All right, awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Teddy.